Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story this hour. Yet another blow for British citizens hoping for a better 2023. According to a report published by PricewaterhouseCoopers Company, the average British worker's pay in 2023 is expected to fall back to 2006 levels once inflation is taken into account. In a big upset for those hoping for a New Year salary bump to offset the soaring food and energy costs, the real wages, which factor in inflation, are expected to fall by as much as 3% in 2022 and by another 2% in 2023. The PwC report paints a grim picture of the UK economy, which is struggling to find its track back to the normal after the pandemic hit years. The report confirms that wages have been stagnated in Britain, while the inflation has hit double digits. This in turn has sparked the worst cost of living crisis in decades. And to oppose that, industry workers have been staging widespread strikes across the UK, even during the holiday season. The protesting forces include railways, schools, nurses, hospitals, and the postal service staff. The PwC economists believe that 2022 has been a challenging year and that 2023 will get headwinds from its previous year. However, the report also left some room for hope, as it suggests that more than 300,000 UK workers could rejoin the labour market in 2023. The rejoinings would reduce the economic inactivity and will alleviate staff shortages in highly skilled sectors. Immigration to the UK could become another source of hope. It could directly contribute $23 billion to the economy. Contribution will boost GDP growth by 1%, even as the whole economy contracts. According to PwC, this is because the UK remains an attractive destination for workers. Now, the UK immigration levels reached a record 1.1 million in 2022. However, even with record immigration, the United Kingdom has lagged behind in its post-COVID employment recovery. Vacancies hit a record of 1.3 million earlier in the year, dropping to just under 1.2 million in November. Worker shortages have been particularly acute in the hospitality, retail and agriculture industries. Economists believe early retirement, increasing long-term sickness, lower EU immigration following Brexit and an ageing UK population have played a role in the workforce crisis. The PwC believes the UK inflation likely peaked in October and will gradually begin to return to target over the next 2 years. Now, for more details on this story, we are being joined by Jonathan Liss, who is a journalist. Thanks for being with us, Jonathan. Now, stagnant wages, rising inflation, bad news for the British citizens. How do you find these readings of the latest report on wages?
Well, it's obviously very worrying. We know that we have the tightest squeeze on wages and living standards in almost living memory in this country, depending on the scales you use. By some bits, it's for over 100 years, is the tightest squeeze. And so we know that we're suffering in this country. And that's why, as you said, there are mass strikes taking place at the moment on a level that simply have not been seen before, at least in almost 100 years since the general strike. We had nurses go on strike for the first time in their union's history last week, ambulance workers going on strike as well. So there is a massive scale of discontent in this country because, as you say, inflation is soaring and wages are stagnating. And we also are currently in a recession, which is projected by the Bank of England to be the longest in decades.
Right, and Jonathan, what are the major factors that are ailing the British economy today?
Well, if you believe the government, then they say that it's because of the Ukraine war and because of energy prices and because of global factors. But that simply isn't the whole story. Obviously, those are factors, but there's a reason that Britain's recession is projected to be the deepest and longest in the developed world. And that's partly because we have a chronic productivity problem in this country. It's partly because people went back after COVID and didn't come back but it's also because of Brexit, of course. That's the thing that Britain has done, which no other country has done, sever itself from its largest market, erecting trade barriers with its largest partners and neighbours, an entirely voluntary hit on GDP, which is projected to cost the UK economy 4 to 5% of GDP, depending on which report you believe. And so that was an entirely unnecessary and gratuitous assault on the British economy, which the government is still not taking responsibility for. And of course, on top of that, you had the disastrous premiership of Liz Truss earlier this year. And obviously, she crashed the economy by her mini budget, which spooked the markets and has led to big interest rate rises, which is going to hit people with mortgages and with debts, and in turn renters as well. And so that's just another problem for the British economy, because investors have taken fright and they no longer think of Britain as being a safe haven for investment.
Right, and Jonathan, based on what you've just said, do you believe that the troubles are then inherent to the British economy, or is this more of a part of a global malaise?
I think there is a global malaise, of course, because of the Ukraine war in particular, and also because the whole world is dealing with the aftershocks of COVID. And we're seeing that in China, for example, at the moment with factories and so on. But of course, as I say, there are specific issues for Britain. Britain is a lot poorer than the British people think it is. And that's a real problem. And Britain is no longer the great economic power that it was until even a few years ago. And that is a really difficult thing for people to take in. And I think Brexit is the leading cause of that, because not only has it been incredibly damaging for Britain's reputation, but it's also been a hammer blow to Britain's economy at a time when we could not afford it.
Jonathan, thank you very much for those insights and understanding there. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.